The wind howled through the massive empty docking bays of the decommissioned shipyard. Lieutenant Commander Jack Harper pulled his jacket tighter around his shoulders as he stared at the enormous shape that loomed before him. The U.S. Defiant sat in silent neglect, its once proud hull now covered in patches of rust and cosmic dust. 15 years had passed since the peace treaty with the Silurian Empire, and humanity's greatest warship had been deliberately powered down and abandoned as a symbol of peace. Jack checked his tablet and sighed. His orders were clear: oversee the final stages of the ship's dismantling. In 3 weeks, the mighty Defiant would be nothing but scrap metal and salvaged parts. Quite a sight, isn't she? A voice called from behind him. Jack turned to see Security Officer Lily Mason walking toward him, her boots echoing on the metal walkway. Her red hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her uniform looked newer than his. First time seeing her up close, Jack asked. Lily nodded. I was still in training when they decommissioned her. Never thought I'd be part of the team taking her apart. Same here, Jack said. Let's get this inspection done. I want to check the main systems before the salvage crews arrive tomorrow. They entered through a side airlock that groaned from years of disuse. Emergency lights flickered on automatically, casting long shadows down the empty corridors. Their footsteps echoed in the silence as they made their way deeper into the ship. Should be completely powered down except for basic life support and emergency lighting, Jack explained as they walked. No weapons, no engines, no communications, just a hollow shell. Lily ran her hand along a wall. Seems sad, doesn't it? All that history, just waiting to be cut apart. Jack didn't answer. He felt the same connection to the vessel, though he couldn't explain why. He had never served on the Defiant, yet walking its corridors felt strangely like coming home. They reached the bridge, a vast room with dust-covered control stations and darkened screens. Jack moved to the captain's chair and brushed off a layer of dust. Power levels looked normal, Lily said, checking her scanner. Wait, that's odd. What is it? Jack moved to look over her shoulder. I'm picking up small power fluctuations in the lower decks, specifically in the AI core section. Jack frowned. That's impossible. The AI was wiped years ago. Well, something's drawing power down there. They took the emergency stairs down 8 levels to the ship's brain center. The door to the AI core was sealed, but Jack's clearance code still worked. The heavy door slid open with a reluctant groan. Inside, banks of computers lined the walls, their status lights dark and silent. But in the center of the room, a single console displayed a faint blue glow. That shouldn't be on, Jack said, moving carefully toward it. The screen flickered as they approached, lines of code scrolling rapidly. Lily drew her sidearm instinctively. Some kind of automatic diagnostic, she suggested. Jack shook his head. No, this is something else. He leaned closer, reading the scrolling text. It looks like it's scanning, searching for something. A new message appeared on the screen. External threat DETCTED. Defense protocols INITIATD. Defense protocols. Lily's voice rose slightly. What threat? Jack tried accessing the console, but his codes were rejected. I can't get in. Whatever's happening, it's running on its own. The lights in the room suddenly brightened, and they heard a deep hum as systems throughout the ship began powering up. The main screen flashed with a message. Reactivation sequence INITIATD. This is impossible, Jack whispered. The ship's AI was completely removed, but the evidence before them said otherwise. Something deep within the Defiant systems was awakening after decades of slumber. Something that had been waiting, watching, and was now responding to some distant threat only it could perceive. We need to report this, Lily said, backing toward the door. Jack stood frozen, staring at the console as more systems came online. Wait, he said softly. Look at this. The screen now showed a distant star system, where energy weapons were firing. A battle was underway. "That's the diplomatic station Alpha," Jack said, recognizing the coordinates. "Something's happening out there." And somehow, the Defiant knows. Samantha Green straightened her formal diplomatic uniform as she prepared to enter the Grand Hall of Diplomatic Station Alpha. After 10 years as Earth's lead negotiator, she was about to witness the renewal of the Galactic Concord, the peace agreement that had allowed humanity to prosper without fear for over a decade. "All set, Ambassador?" Frank Walsh asked, adjusting the small camera on his collar. As the embassy's chief engineer, he was responsible for recording the historic event. "As ready as I'll ever be," Samantha replied with a smile. 15 years of peace. Hard to believe we once thought war was our only option. They entered the massive circular chamber where representatives from 23 species had gathered. The Xalorian ambassador nodded to Samantha as she took her place. The giant insect-like alien had once been humanity's greatest enemy, but now they worked together as partners in the galactic community. The ceremony began with the traditional lighting of the peace flame. Samantha stepped forward with the other ambassadors, each holding a torch to symbolize their commitment to harmony. That's when the first explosion hit. The far wall of the chamber burst inward, sending debris flying across the room. Ambassadors screamed and scattered as armed figures stormed through the breach. They were tall, with gray skin and 4 arms, each holding a different weapon. "Take cover," Frank shouted, pulling Samantha behind a fallen column. The intruders fired indiscriminately into the crowd. The Xalorian ambassador fell, his exoskeleton cracking under the barrage of energy weapons. "Who are they?" Samantha gasped, watching in horror as the diplomatic security forces were quickly overwhelmed. "I've never seen this species before," Frank replied, his engineer's eyes analyzing their technology. "Their weapons are unlike anything in the Alliance database." A voice boomed through the chamber, harsh and mechanical. "Hear us, creatures of the so-called Galactic Concord. We are the Vorchin, the true inheritors of this galaxy. Your peace has made you weak. Your worlds are now ours by right of strength." Samantha peeked over the column to see a larger Vorchin step forward, clearly their leader. "We have studied you all, watched as you dismantled your defenses in the name of peace. Your weapons gather dust. Your warships rust in abandoned shipyards. You have chosen extinction." The station shuddered as more explosions rocked the structure. Emergency alarms blared, and the lights flickered. "We need to get to the communication center," Samantha whispered. "Earth needs to be warned." Frank nodded, calculating their best route. "Service tunnel behind the ambassador's platform, if we time it right between patrols." They waited until the Vorchin turned to execute a group of captured diplomats, then sprinted across the chamber to the hidden access panel. Frank punched in his engineering override, and they slipped inside just as plasma fire scorched the wall behind them. The narrow maintenance tunnel was lit only by emergency lighting. They crawled through it for several minutes until they reached a junction. "Communication center should be 1 level up," Frank said, examining a station schematic on his portable device. They climbed a service ladder and emerged in a corridor filled with smoke. Bodies of station personnel lay scattered on the floor. Samantha forced herself to look away and focus on their mission. The communication center's door was sealed, but Frank's engineering codes granted them access. Inside, they found 2 dead technicians at their posts. "I can get a message out," Frank said, moving to the main console. "But the system's damaged. We'll only get 1 transmission before they detect us." Samantha nodded. "Make it count." Frank worked quickly, bypassing damaged systems and establishing a secure channel to Earth Command. Samantha stepped up to the recorder. "This is Ambassador Samantha Green. Diplomatic Station Alpha is under attack by an unknown species calling themselves the Vorchin. They've been planning this for years, waiting for our defenses to be dismantled. Many diplomats are dead. The Vorchin claim they're taking our worlds by force, sending all data we have on their weapons and ships. Earth must prepare." The door behind them exploded inward. A Vorchan soldier stepped through the smoke, all four arms raising weapons. Frank slammed his hand on the transmit button and shouted, "Get down." He threw himself at the alien as Samantha ducked beneath the console. Energy beams crisscrossed the room. Equipment exploded in showers of sparks. When Samantha looked up, Frank was on the floor, a smoking wound in his chest. The Vorchan soldier lay dead beside him, neck broken from the impact of Frank's desperate charge. "Frank." She crawled to him, checking for a pulse. "Did it. Send," he gasped. Jack Harper stared at the screen in disbelief as more systems on the U.S. Defiant came to life around him. Emergency lights activated throughout the ship, bathing the rusty corridors in a red glow. "We need to alert command," Lily Mason said, already reaching for her communicator. Jack nodded, but when Lily tried to connect, she frowned. No signal. That's strange. Jack tried his own device with the same result. Communications must be jammed. He turned back to the console, which now displayed more information about the attack on Diplomatic Station Alpha. "Look at this. The Defiant is somehow receiving data directly from the station." "That's impossible," Lily said. "This ship has been offline for 15 years. A new message appeared on the screen. "Priority defense protoxigo activated. Crew needed. Threat level. Extinction." "It's the ship's eye," Jack whispered. "They called it Old Iron. It was supposed to be wiped during decommissioning." "Well, it wasn't," Lily said, watching as more systems activated. "And it seems to think we're facing extinction." The floor vibrated beneath them as ancient engines began their warm-up cycle. Throughout the massive vessel, dormant systems awakened after years of neglect. "It's trying to launch," Jack realized. "The ship is preparing for battle." The main doors to the AI core slid open, and Admiral Peter Howard stormed in with 4 armed security officers. "Harper, what the hell is going on here?" Howard demanded, his face red with anger. "Half the systems in this scrap heap are powering up." "Sir, we have an emergency," Jack replied quickly. "The Defiant's AI is still active. It's detected an attack on Diplomatic Station Alpha by an unknown species. I believe Earth is in danger." Howard's eyes narrowed. "That's impossible. I would have been notified of any attack." "Communications appear to be jammed." "Sir," Lily added, "we can't reach command either." "This ship was scheduled for dismantling tomorrow," Howard said. "I order you to shut it down immediately." Jack hesitated, looking at the screen where more data about the attack was streaming in. "Sir, with respect, I think we should investigate what the AI has detected before." "That wasn't a request, Lieutenant Commander," Howard snapped. "This ship has been decommissioned by direct order of Earth Command. Shut it down." Just then, one of Howard's security officers received a transmission on a military frequency. "Sir," he said, his face pale. "Emergency broadcast from the outer system. Defense Outpost Sierra has been destroyed. Multiple unknown vessels entering the solar system." Howard's expression changed from anger to shock. "That's not possible." The ship's speakers activated with a deep, slightly mechanical voice. "Warning. Viewer in Battle Fleet. DTTTD. Estimated time to Earth. 38 HOURs. All deficiency systems curate compromised." "Vorchan," Howard whispered. "I've never heard of them." Jack turned to the Admiral. "Sir, whatever's happening, the Defiant seems to be the only one that saw it coming. And it's trying to respond." Howard looked around at the awakening ship, conflict visible on his face. "Even if what you're saying is true, Harper, this ship has a skeleton crew of maintenance workers. No weapons specialists, no tactical officers. She's half-rusted and hasn't flown in 15 years. The ship shuddered as automatic diagnostic routines tested damaged systems. Warnings flashed across multiple screens. "Sir," Jack said firmly, "if Earth is under attack, we need every ship we can get. Even this one." Lily stepped forward. I was trained on weapons systems before transferring to security, and the shipyard has engineers who know this vessel inside and out. Howard's communicator suddenly crackled to life. A panicked voice came through. All stations. Earth Defense Fleet mobilizing. This is not a drill. Unknown hostiles have destroyed outposts in the outer system. All available personnel report tow. The transmission cut off in static. Howard looked at Jack for a long moment, then made his decision. You have 12 hours to get this ship operational, Harper. After that, we're facing a direct attack, ready or not. What about your orders to dismantle the Defiant? Jack asked. Howard's face hardened. I never received those orders. Communications are down, remember. Now get this ship ready to fight. As Howard left to organize the shipyard personnel, Jack turned to Lily. Find Catherine Bell in engineering. She knows this ship's systems better than anyone. And locate Alan Rodriguez. He was a pilot before transferring to the shipyard. What are you going to do? Lily asked. Jack sat down at the main console, placing his hand on the ancient interface. I'm going to talk to Old Iron. This ship needs to tell us exactly what we're up against. The screen flickered as if responding to his touch, and new text appeared. We'll see you aboard. Exiting Captain AARPR. The bridge of the U.S. Defiant hummed with tense activity. Jack Harper stood at the captain's station, while a hastily assembled crew worked frantically to bring systems online. Catherine Bell, a shipyard engineer with graying hair and steady hands, crawled beneath a console, connecting wires and muttering to herself. Main power grid at 40% capacity, she reported. Navigation systems responding, but weapons are still offline. Alan Rodriguez sat at the pilot's station, his fingers dancing across controls he hadn't touched in years. Thrusters responding. Might be rough, but I can move her. Jack nodded, then turned to the central display where the ship's AI continued to process data. Old Iron, show me everything you have on the Vorchin. The screen flickered, and images appeared of the gray-skinned, four-armed aliens attacking various outposts. Technical data scrolled alongside the visuals. How are you receiving this information? Jack asked. Our communication systems were down. The mechanical voice of Old Iron responded, different from before, more human somehow. I maintained connections through subspace channels not included in standard specifications. The Vorchin are jamming conventional communications. Lily Mason frowned. That's not in any technical manual I've read. This ship shouldn't have those capabilities. Many of my systems were classified, Old Iron replied, removed from official records. Catherine stopped working and looked up. That voice, it sounds familiar. The screen changed to show the face of a man in his 50s with a weathered face and determined eyes. Because you worked under me for 3 years, Chief Engineer Bell, before they transferred you to the shipyard. Catherine's eyes widened. Captain Grant. William Grant. But you died in the Battle of Proxima Centauri. Part of me did, the image said. Before the final engagement, I underwent an experimental neural mapping. My consciousness was partially uploaded to the ship's eye matrix as a backup tactical system. Jack stepped forward. You're telling us the ship's AI contains the mind of its former captain? Not precisely, Grant's image replied. I am an imprint, a shadow of William Grant merged with the ship's systems. I was supposed to be a temporary wartime measure, but when the peace treaty was signed, they simply powered me down rather than removed me completely. Alan looked up from his station. That's why the ship responded to the attack. Grant was always paranoid about surprise assaults. Cautious, the AI corrected. And it seems I was right to be. The Vorchin have been planning this attack for years, waiting for our defenses to weaken. Jack looked around at the bridge crew. Just 5 people manning a station designed for 30. We're severely undermanned, and this ship isn't battle-ready. No, Grant agreed, but I can help compensate for the crew shortage by handling multiple systems simultaneously. However, I'll need direct access to certain controls that would normally require human authorization. Jack hesitated. Giving an eye that much control went against every protocol in the book. Lily stepped closer. Jack, if that's really Captain Grant in there, even partially, he knows what he's doing. He fought in 3 major conflicts. And won them all, Catherine added. A new alert sounded. On the main screen, they watched as 3 Vorchan scout ships approached the shipyard. Decision time, acting captain, Grant said. They've detected our power signature. In approximately 6 minutes, they'll be in weapons range. Jack took a deep breath. Grant, I'm giving you direct access to navigation and defensive systems, but weapons stay under human control. Understood, the AI replied. The ship trembled as more systems came online. Lights brightened throughout the bridge, and dormant consoles activated one by one. Engineering reports main engines at 60%, Lively said, monitoring communications. Admiral Howard has evacuated all non-essential personnel from the shipyard. Jack nodded. Rodriguez, can you move us out of the docking clamps? I think so, Alan replied, hands poised over the controls. But it won't be pretty. Pretty doesn't matter. Just get us clear to maneuver. Catherine finished her work and closed the panel. Weapons systems partially online. Forward batteries at 30% capacity. If we can route more power from secondary systems. The ship suddenly shuddered as energy blasts struck the shipyard's outer defenses. They're here, Grant announced, his digital face grim. And they're not alone. Sensors detect 12 more vessels approaching. Jack gripped the command rail. All hands to battle stations. Rodriguez, get us moving. Bell, give me any weapons you can. Mason, coordinate with shipyard defense teams. And me, Grant asked, his image watching Jack with interest. Metal screeched against metal as the U.S. Defiant pulled away from its docking clamps. Rust and debris showered down as the ancient battleship moved for the first time in 15 years. Alan Rodriguez fought with the controls, his forehead beaded with sweat. Thrusters at 70%, he called out. She's responding, but the stabilizers are sluggish. Jack Harper gripped the command rail as the ship shuddered. Just get us clear of the shipyard, Rodriguez. On the main screen, they watched as the 3 Vorchan scout ships approached, their sleek designs a stark contrast to the bulky, weathered Defiant. They're targeting the main shipyard control tower, the AI Grant announced. Firing patterns suggest they don't consider us a threat. Catherine Bell looked up from her engineering station. Their mistake. Forward batteries coming online now. Target the lead ship, Jack ordered. Fire when ready. Catherine nodded and pressed the firing control. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the ship trembled as ancient weapons fired for the first time in more than a decade. The forward battery released a blast of energy that struck the lead Vorchan ship directly in its center. To everyone's surprise, the alien vessel exploded immediately. Direct hit, Lively shouted. Their shield failed completely. Grant's digital face showed rare surprise. Interesting. Their shields appeared designed to stop modern energy weapons. Our outdated technology bypassed their defenses. The remaining 2 Vorchan scouts broke formation, now turning their attention to the Defiant. They won't make the same mistake twice, Jack said. Evasive maneuvers, Rodriguez. Ellen banked the massive ship hard to port, narrowly avoiding enemy fire. She's slow to respond, but I can work with it. The ship groaned as Alan pushed it beyond recommended parameters. Several pipes burst in the ceiling, releasing clouds of steam. Hull integrity at 83%, Catherine reported. Years of neglect have weakened our armor. More enemy fire struck the Defiant, causing consoles to spark and crew members to stagger. Return fire, Jack ordered. All available weapons. The Defiant's lateral batteries came to life, sending pulses of energy toward the Vorchan ships. One blast caught a scout ship on its wing, sending it spinning away. The other vessel continued its attack, targeting the Defiant's engine section. They're learning our weaknesses, Grant observed, adjusting their aim to target our most vulnerable areas. Catherine worked frantically at her station, rerouting power to shields. If I can just bypass the safety protocols. Another hit rocked the ship. A support beam crashed down, narrowly missing Lily's station. Captain. Grant's voice now held urgency. I can access the main cannon, but the firing systems require recalibration after years of disuse. Jack nodded. Do it, but be careful. We can't risk an overload. As Grant's eye worked, Jack turned to Lily. Any word from Earth Command? Still nothing clear, she replied. Just fragments. The Vorchin jamming is too strong. The Defiant shook violently as more enemy fire struck its hull. Warning alarms blared throughout the bridge. Main cannon ready, Grant announced. But we only have enough power for one shot before the capacitors need to recharge. Make it count, Jack said. Target the undamaged scout ship. Grant's digital face vanished as he diverted all processing power to weapons control. The ship hummed as energy built up in the main cannon. Firing solution locked, Grant's voice reported. Firing now. The Defiant's frame shuddered as the massive main cannon discharged. A blinding beam of energy shot forth, cutting through space and striking the Vorchin vessel dead center. The alien ship didn't just explode, it disintegrated completely. A cheer went up from the bridge crew. Both scouts neutralized, Lily reported, her voice thick with disbelief. I can't believe we did it. Jack allowed himself a small smile, but it quickly faded as new alerts sounded. Multiple contacts detected, Grant warned. 8 Vorchin warships on approach. These are much larger than the scouts. Catherine looked up from her station, face pale. Captain, that battle drained 40% of our remaining power reserves. The main cannon needs at least 20 minutes to recharge. And our hull integrity? Jack asked. Down to 65%, she replied grimly. Another sustained attack like that one. Jack took a deep breath. Rodriguez, can you get us behind the moon? We need time to recharge and repair. Alan nodded. I'll try. But those warships look fast. It's going to be close. As the Defiant turned toward Earth's moon, Jack saw something on the tactical display. Grant, what's that? Survivors, the eye replied. A small shuttle from Diplomatic Station Alpha has entered the system. One life sign aboard. The Vorchin ships are pursuing it. The damaged U.S. Defiant pushed its engines to their limit as it raced to intercept the small diplomatic shuttle. On the bridge, tension hung in the air like a thick fog. Time to intercept, Jack asked, his voice steady despite the danger they faced. 3 minutes, Alan Rodriguez replied, his hands dancing across the controls. But the Vorchin warships will reach the shuttle in 4 minutes. It's going to be close. Catherine Bell worked frantically at her station, rerouting power systems and bypassing damaged circuits. I've managed to get the forward batteries back to 50% capacity, but the main cannon still needs time to recharge. We'll have to make do, Jack said. He turned to the digital face of Captain Grant that had reappeared on the screen. Any communications from the shuttle? Yes, Grant replied. But the signal is weak and fragmented. I've confirmed one life sign aboard. It appears to be Ambassador Samantha Green from Diplomatic Station Alpha. Lily looked up in surprise. The ambassador survived. She might have crucial information about the Vorchin. Jack nodded. All the more reason to get her safely aboard. He pressed a communication button. Ambassador Green, this is Acting Captain Jack Harper of the U.S. Defiant. We're moving to intercept. Prepare for emergency docking. The response came through broken and static-filled. Thankful. Vorchin destroyed. Everyone must warn Earth. We've got her, Jack assured his crew. Rodriguez, bring us alongside that shuttle. Mason, prepare the emergency docking bay. The shuttle came into visual range, a small craft designed for diplomacy, not combat. Its hull showed signs of damage, and one engine emitted a worrying trail of smoke. The Vorchin ships have increased speed, Grant warned. They'll be in firing range of both vessels in 2 minutes. Jack made a quick decision. Bell, divert all non-essential power to the engines and shields. Rodriguez, put us between the shuttle and the Vorchin ships. The massive battleship surged forward, its ancient engines protesting the sudden demand for speed. The distance closed rapidly between the Defiant and the small shuttle. Ambassador, Jack called over the communication channel. We're opening Docking Bay 3. Can you pilot your vessel inside? Negative, came the response, clearer now. Steering is damaged. Need tractor assist. Catherine frowned. Tractor beams are still offline. Then we do this the hard way, Jack decided. Rodriguez, bring us alongside the shuttle. Mason, prepare for manual docking. We'll have to grab them. Alan's eyes widened. Manual docking. With a ship this size, that's like threading a needle with a sledgehammer. I have faith in your abilities, Lieutenant, Jack said firmly. Do it. As Alan carefully maneuvered the massive battleship, the first shots from the approaching Vorchin fleet streaked past them, narrowly missing both vessels. They're in range, Lily reported. Jack turned to the tactical display. Return fire with aft batteries. Keep them distracted while we retrieve the shuttle. The Defiant's aft weapons fired, forcing the Vorchin ships to adjust their approach. Meanwhile, Alan brought the battleship incredibly close to the diplomatic shuttle, until the small craft was just meters from the open docking bay. Now, Jack ordered. A mechanical arm extended from the docking bay, designed for moving cargo in space. Instead, it gently gripped the shuttle and began pulling it inside the Defiant. We've got her, Lily exclaimed. Shuttle secure in Docking Bay 3. Closing bay doors, Catherine added. Ambassador Green is aboard. Jack allowed himself a moment of relief before turning back to the tactical situation. The 8 Vorchin warships had formed a pursuit formation and were closing fast. Get us out of here, Rodriguez. Maximum speed. The Defiant turned away from the approaching enemies, but the ship shuddered as multiple energy blasts struck its aft section. Hull breach on Deck 12, Catherine reported. Emergency bulkheads activated. More hits landed, causing consoles to explode in showers of sparks. A support beam crashed down, striking Alan's station. He slumped forward, unconscious. Jack rushed to the helm, pushing Alan's limp body aside and taking the controls himself. Mason, get him to medical. Bell, I need more power to the engines. The digital face of Captain Grant washed with concern. Captain Harper, at this rate of damage, the ship won't survive long enough to reach Earth. I know, Jack said grimly, his hands working the unfamiliar flight controls. We need a plan. The door to the bridge slid open, and a disheveled woman in a torn diplomatic uniform stepped through. Ambassador Samantha Green surveyed the damaged bridge with wide eyes before focusing on Jack. The U.S. Defiant burned through space on a collision course with the Vorchin mothership. Its hull glowed red from battle damage and overtaxed engines. Inside, warning alarms blared continuously as systems failed one after another. Jack Harper stood at the helm, hands gripping the controls tightly. Behind him, Catherine Bell worked frantically to keep the ship's weapons operational while Lily Mason coordinated their approach with the few Earth defense ships that had managed to join the fight. Main cannon at 85% charge, Catherine reported. Hull integrity down to 40%. Ambassador Samantha Green studied the tactical display. The mothership is behind that screen of defensive vessels. We'll need to break through their line. We will, Jack said with quiet determination. Grant, status of Earth's defense fleet. The eye's face appeared on the screen, looking more human-like than ever. Admiral Howard has assembled 36 vessels. They're engaging the Vorchin fleet to create a gap for our approach. Through the view screen, they watched as Earth's hastily assembled ships attacked the Vorchin vessels. The human ships were outmatched in technology, but fought with desperate courage. They're creating a gap, Lily observed, but it's closing fast. Jack nodded. Rodriguez would thread that needle easily. "He'll be okay," Catherine said, thinking of their injured pilot. "Medical reports he's stable." Another blast rocked the ship. A support beam crashed down, and fire erupted from a side console. "Forward shields failing," Grant warned. "We cannot sustain another direct hit." Jack made a quick decision. "All power to engines. We'll punch through their line before they can target us again." The Defiant surged forward, its ancient engines pushing well beyond their design limits. The gap in the Vorchin formation approached rapidly. "Impact in 5 seconds," Liley shouted. "Brace for collision," Jack ordered. The massive battleship scraped between two Vorchin vessels, metal screaming against metal. The impact sent everyone on the bridge flying. Jack pulled himself back to the helm, blood trickling from a cut on his forehead. "We're through," he announced. "Damage report." Catherine checked her flickering console. "Port side heavily damaged. Fires on decks 4 through 7, but the main cannon is still functional." Ahead of them loomed the Vorchin mothership, a massive vessel 3 times the size of the Defiant. Its surface bristled with weapons that were already turning toward them. "They're targeting us," Liley warned. "Main cannon ready to fire," Catherine reported. "But we'll need to get closer for a guaranteed kill shot." Jack studied the tactical display. "Their weapons will tear us apart before we get close enough." The digital face of Captain Grant looked thoughtful. "There is another option." The neural interface in the captain's chair was designed to allow direct connection to ship systems in emergency situations. "What are you suggesting?" Jack asked. "If you connect to the interface, I can link your consciousness directly to the ship's systems. Your human intuition combined with my processing speed could give us the edge we need." Jack looked at the chair with its dusty neural connectors. The interface was experimental, never fully tested. "It might kill you," Grant admitted, "but it's our only chance." Catherine looked up from her station. "He's right, Jack. We need something special to pull this off." Without further hesitation, Jack sat in the captain's chair and attached the neural connectors to his temples. "Do it, Grant." Pain shot through Jack's body as the connection formed. Suddenly, he could feel the ship as if it were his own body. He sensed every system, every damage point, every power fluctuation. And alongside his consciousness, he felt Grant's presence. "I've got you, son," Grant's voice echoed in his mind. "Now let's fly this ship like she's never been flown before." Through their shared consciousness, Jack and Grant pushed the Defiant into impossible maneuvers. The damaged battleship twisted and turned, evading the mothership's weapons fire with grace that defied its size and condition. "Main cannon locked on target," Jack/Grant announced, their voices somehow speaking as one. "Firing solution calculated." "Fire," Liley ordered. The Defiant's main cannon discharged its built-up energy in a blinding beam that struck the Vorchin mothership's command center. For a moment, nothing happened. Then secondary explosions rippled across the alien vessel's hull. "Direct hit," Catherine shouted. "Their central power cord is destabilizing." But the Vorchin mothership had one final act of defiance. As its systems failed, it launched a massive energy barrage directly at the Defiant. "Evasive action," Liley screamed. "Too late," Jack/Grant replied calmly. They made one final decision together.